Hello, movie patient, and welcome to Film Therapy. I am Brienne, also known as Miss Movies, also known as your film therapist. I am not an actual therapist, but I play one on the internet for this show just for you. And this show doesn't work if I don't have a guest. And that guest today is Mr. Joe Starr. Hey!
Hey, good morning.
How's it going over there?
It's good. I'm live from the Screen Junkies offices where we do
Oh.
crazy things like have green furniture, and I'm drinking coffee from a straw. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, hey, and are you in a closet or are you at your desk? Is the question I
I I am in a conference room.
Okay, sweet.
I snagged one.
That is fantastic. So, for those that are unaware of how the show works, it is a storytelling show where I ask my guest three specific questions. They are the same three questions each time. What is a film that inspires you? What is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, maybe it's happy. And what is a film that helps you through difficult times? Speaking of difficult times, I started this show because I suffer from depression. And
Hmm.
so I just want to remind people out there that if you need help, please see your doctor or call a friend or go to the emergency room, whatever you need to get help if you're having a specific emergency right now. So that is my thing. That is my little spiel at the beginning. But
Hey,
let's get
and
to know Joe for before we start.
well, I'll speak on that too, just because
Yes.
I don't like the idea that you can't care deeply about things like this and then also care deeply about bigger issues in the world because these things matter. These things are our tools to communicate with each other. You know, you just said it yourself. Like, the test is how you dealt with your depression. It's how you reach out to other people. So I think pop culture and this stupid stuff that we love and we're obsessed over is super important for building bridges and communicating with each other and dealing with stuff. So I don't know that I have a point ultimately to that. I just wanted to second your intro.
Excellent. I feel like without movies, I don't think I could. Like, I don't know what I would do if that art form wasn't available to me. Maybe like
I
I'd
do,
go to music or like, I don't know. I just feel like eh, my
I'm
life
the
would have
same.
less purpose.
I'm the same way. Like, I don't know how I'd communicate without any of these things. Like, I more than once in my life, I've, in all seriousness, been like, it's like that scene in Three Ninjas.
Yes.
That '90s movie about those three kids, and people go, uh-huh. Yeah, no, I think it's important. I think it's important to care about both things and possible to.
Right. I constantly think in movie quotes and in movie scenes like throughout
Hmm.
my day, all day. And then I feel like when I bring it up, I like very specifically will bring up things if I feel like my audience, meaning like the person in front of me, like where I'm at the grocery store or whatever, like if I feel like they might catch on to what I'm thinking at the
Into
moment,
what you're throwing out.
then maybe I'll like throw it in there, but most of the time it's just in my head. Like that's kind of how it works. I mean, and it worked like that when I was a kid. Like I would constantly throw out jokes, recycled jokes from like Home Improvement when I was like 8 years old, like to my family, and they thought I was hilarious. And I was like, no, that's just a joke from the show I watch.
Oh yeah, no, my childhood was built on just like reenacting Holy Grail scenes for like whoever would pay attention to me. So yeah.
Now, reenacting Holy Grail is first of all, I love Holy Grail, so I'm glad that we brought that up. But there is a documentary, I don't know if you're aware of it, called Raiders with an exclamation mark on the end of it on Netflix.
It's the fan film, right?
Yes, I wanted to see if you had seen that
I
or if you
haven't
knew
I
about
haven't seen it. I remember reading about I think when they had finally finished it, a lot of stories started popping up online, and
it. Mhm.
it got added to the Blu-ray release of Indiana Jones, right? As like a special feature,
I'm not
maybe
sure. I'm not
like
sure.
the actual film. But I think that's awesome. Uh,
For those that don't know, it's a fan film where they went and they remade the entire movie shot for shot of Raiders of the Lost Ark.
yeah, like
And
painstaking. It's
yeah.
fantastic.
And it's just these guys that were friends and like sometimes they didn't shoot it in order, so like sometimes they're like 30 years old, sometimes they're 12, like they've been doing it since they were kids.
Yeah. No, it's so cool. That's such a cool thing to be able to like bond over and like learn filmmaking through. Um, in LA, maybe not as a uh, passionate, like a legitimate passionate thing, but when the remake phenomenon really started to happen, there was a group in LA that started a thing called uh, oh, what was it called? It was
Point
called
Break Live. Yes.
what was it? Which I love Point Break Live. It wasn't. It was called. I think it was. I can't remember if it was Dirty Dancing or Footloose, but they did like a uh, oh, it was Dirty Dancing because they had done Havana Nights or something like that. So they did a thing called My Footloose remake where they just split up Footloose into scenes, and different like comedy groups and different production companies and stuff all just
Right.
picked a scene and
Yes.
redid them however they wanted, and then they screened it as like one complete movie. They did the same thing for RoboCop.
Yes, the
They're
RoboCop one is crazy.
It's insane.
So good. So good.
Yeah.
Guys, check out all this stuff. Let's go ahead and now that we've, diverted into some other realms, let's go ahead and get back
Oh, you
into
found my first therapy thing where I just deflect and talk about other stuff.
Hey, that's what I do too. So we're going to start with our first question, which is what is a movie that inspires you?
So I'm gonna go with two. I'm gonna do my best to not rocket around to like 50 different titles
Because
today.
you can always come back and do different answers.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. We'll do my follow up. So I'm gonna go. I wanted to talk about Hot Shots Part 2
Okay.
and the lesser known National Lampoon's Loaded Weapon 1. And I I go with these because when I was a kid, they're probably still my two favorite comedies. But when I was a kid, like these were these two movies were like the funniest things I had ever seen in my life. And as you get older and you start to understand more humor and like your taste change, like they're also two movies that are so dense with jokes. You start to catch more and you start to get more. And I picked those because those were two movies that really I think shaped how important trying to be or how important being funny was to me and how my funny was going to like present itself. Um, they're just such stupid movies. But they're so fun. Most people have seen Hot Shots Part 2, which is
Was there
Charlie.
but there was a Hot Shots like original, right? I would
There
love
was a
it
Hot Shots
though.
original, which I actually I rewatched recently and just stone faced through the whole time. That one's a Top Gun parody. Part 2 is like a straight up like Rambo parody, and
Because I feel like there's a movie called Troll 2 or something, but there's not a troll. There's no troll like original.
there is actually
Right?
there is a troll. They have almost nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
I'm trying to remember. One of them was not originally called Troll. I can't remember which one, and then they just tagged it to the other one. And like, I don't know, make it a sequel to that. Or maybe retroactively they made the first one of the second one. I can't remember how that worked. But yeah, these two movies are just so weird that old spoof genre it's dead now. Like the scary movies kind of killed it, and then from Scary Movie it was like they just started pumping out those real reference heavy teen movie, epic movie, internet movie, and blank movie.
There was a 50 Shades of Grey one that was recent.
There was.
I can't
I didn't.
remember what it was called. Someone
It was
in the
50
chat.
Shades of Black. It was one of the weigh-ins.
Yeah. That trailer was pretty hilarious, but I feel like that's all I really need to see.
Yeah. I have a feeling too, which is sad because the Wayans were so important to that genre. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker is such a funny parody of exploitation films and like of Shaft and 70s cop films and stuff like that. I love that movie. Sorry. Hang on, I got to wave because everything just got dark here.
And we will take a brief break for a moment. And Joe,
Sorry about that.
it's
Um,
all right. It's like
that
you're
was
not
really
here. No
that was
one's here.
Branch just talking to herself on film therapy. Her therapy got really bad. Someone sent her help. But those movies were, we talked about, uh, I used to reenact Holy Grail and stuff like that. I feel like those were movies that I found hilarious at like way too young an age,
Hmm.
and would just like walk around quoting uh, and people were just like, "This kid is so weird. Like, what is his deal?" And like I grew up with a guy named Sean who does stand up in Louisville now, where I'm from, and we obsessed over those movies together. And he was uh, like in school, we were in very different groups. I was just sort of this weird, nerdy loner kid, and he was very athletic. He was very popular and outgoing. So we were in different circles, but then like on the bus, going home at the end of the day, we would just like reenact scenes from Loaded Weapon 1. Um, which is if you haven't seen it, it's Emilio Estevez and Samuel L. Jackson. It's a Lethal Weapon parody.
Awesome. I haven't seen it. I
Uh,
was just gonna say, what's it about? Because I know, like, anytime I'm like, oh, I haven't seen that movie, like Judgment Night, my husband will be like, I know that movie. I know
you
that movie. I know
God,
that movie. I'm like, of course you do.
God, Brian. So it's a Lethal Weapon parody. It's the cast is incredible. It's Estevez and Sam Jackson. Tim Curry
Oh,
is
he's
one of
my
the
favorite.
villains, and he's so funny in it. The opening scene is Whoopi Goldberg does a cameo. She's Samuel L. Jackson's partner, and she like has like a microfilm that some criminal needs. The criminal is played by William Shatner, who's absolutely hilarious in this movie. Um, I think he's underappreciated for like how just deadpan and funny he can be. But it's this opening scene where like Tim Curry is dressed as a Girl Scout to like get into her home, and
Uh-huh.
it's so funny. And they just run into these long runs of, he's like, where's the microfilm? And she gives him the location, and he's like, thank you, you've been most cooperative. And then he shoots her. He walks off, but then he walks back, and he's like, is that warehouse on Alpine or Oak? She's like, it's Alpine. Thank you. Shoots her again, leaves, stops, comes back, and is like, North Oak. Just I love that kind of stuff. It's dumb.
Yeah.
I
I think
adore it.
Austin Powers kind of did it a little well. In
Yeah,
terms of like a parody movie, but yeah, I
there's
don't
like,
know.
yeah, there's this weird little golden age of like the Naked Gun movies and Hot Shots and Loaded Weapon and oh, there's a spy one too, with Val Kilmer
Top
in it.
Secret.
Top Secret. Thank you. And then I think MacGruber did a lot of that really well. MacGruber was a little crazier and a lot like darker and weirder. But as far as like parody movies go, they did it. They did the genre pretty well too.
So we have these to credit with you becoming a writer slash comedian.
Probably. Yeah. We had them on VHS, and I watched them religiously, maybe daily sometimes. And when I watch them now, I still know where all of the commercial breaks are
Right.
from the VHS. And
Did you record them on a VHS at home and like you had to like press pause during the commercials? Because
yeah,
I
oh no,
remember
the
doing that.
commercials were there. The commercials were all
Okay.
on it. Like I can still remember like every commercial that played because yeah, we recorded them on TBS, off of TBS one day. And so then that was another thing, because then when I was in college and I had them on DVD, I was like, oh, there's language in these, because I always just watched them on this basic cable tape.
Right. That's hilarious. Well, let's go ahead and get into our second question, which is what is a film or a scene from a film that triggers a memory for you? Perhaps it's painful, perhaps it's happy. So what is that for you?
So I'm going the happy route.
Okay.
Um, uh, Largely, I don't. I really started to blank on like movies that always like get me in like a sad way. But this one kind of does both. So I wanted to talk about the Truman Show,
Okay.
which is Jim Carrey and Laura Linney and Ed Harris. And so I loved this. This movie came out was when I was in high school. I loved it when I was in high school. I remember it came out kind of close to The Matrix and also Dark City, and all three of those
Right.
films have like weirdly similar themes about how like nothing's real, and and so like as
Yeah.
kids we were just like, what's going on, man? What? Um,
Because this was
but
99 or was
Yeah, this would have been 99. I would have been a junior in high school when that came out. Um, but the and Obviously it's a beautiful movie. Jim Carrey's fantastic in it. The reason it um, is wonderful and tough for me to watch now is so when I was in college, I was a theater major, obviously, and
yes. This is why we're friends.
yeah, right, yeah. Um, and so uh, the way it worked when you were a theater major was all of these different theater companies did summer stock in the summers, and so at some point during the year they would do these big regional auditions, like these big cattle call auditions, where all these theater companies would sit and you would do a monologue or whatever, and you'd get job offers, and that's how you worked during the summers. There was like a big outdoor drama in Ohio called Blue Jacket, and it was this big outdoor like weird cowboys and Indians thing. So so many friends of yours would just like go spend a summer playing like Native American number seven in a big epic production of whatever that was. But my best friend Justin and I, Justin Lamb, who is our lead producer on Screen Junkies News here now, um, we did we were doing like improv and writing sketches and stuff together in college, and there was a theater called Seaside Rep, which was casting. They were doing like two Steve Martin plays, and they were casting for an improv group, and we were like, well, this is the only place that we want to try to get jobs at.
Yeah.
So we geared our entire auditions and like our resumes and everything just towards working for this theater. And we both got hired. And the theater is in Seaside, Florida, which is the town where the Truman Show was shot.
Okay.
Um, so that the town exists. It looks really different now. They've developed it a lot, but at the time we were there, it was completely untouched. That town exists in real life exactly how it does in the film. The only thing they added was his insurance building was a facade that they put up, but everything else is there, including most of the extras in the movie live in that
Well,
town.
that makes sense. That makes sense. I honestly thought it was just a soundstage, so that's interesting to know.
No, it's in the Florida Panhandle on Grayton Beach, between like almost exactly between Destin and Panama City. And we worked there. I worked there for 3 years, for 3 summers, and this town is where I met my family basically. The people in that comedy group that we were cast in became my best friends. They became my family. Um, that became the foundation of me really like training as a comedian and finding my voice. Because we just got to rehearse. It was amazing. We lived in this weird little town, and you'd rehearse for a couple of hours a day and then perform at night. And we got to do whatever we wanted. So if we wanted to do a weird improvised show about like the organs of the human body, or one time we just we did a weird show where like the setting was like a toy company's Christmas party in the 80s, and we made the audience just be employees at this company, and we just played. We got to do whatever, and it was really weird and stupid and fun. Um, and we got to do it in this town, and and oops, sorry, hang on, let me close all of my work things so that I'm not getting work bleeped on your podcast. I apologize. But during this time, this is when I started dating Torlin, who's now my wife. We got engaged there.
Was she in the troupe also?
We went to college together, and she would come visit.
And your college was in Ohio? Sorry, I'm trying to
no, it's Western Kentucky University is where I went, which is about an hour and a half north of Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So yeah, once a year we would do this little 8-hour drive down to Seaside. So this town is literally where my entire life started. I feel like, and so watching the movie now always brings a lot of things up. There's this beautiful towards the beginning of the movie. There's this beautiful pan of the town, and there's this gorgeous like courtyard, sort of in the town center. And we used to do children's plays there. We used to do these really fun interactive children's plays that were just mostly improv. And that's something I do miss a lot is doing children's theater stuff and like working with kids and teaching kids improv and stuff like that. But that's where we'd always do that. I worked in the market where his best friend is like restocking the vending machines, and Truman comes in and he's like, something's going on, like watch, and like he does the big like, ah! And did anybody react? Did anybody react? I worked there. And that's Modica Market. The old man that's at the cash register was Charles Modica, who was kind of an anchor of the town. He was one of the first residents there. That market was a really nice town center. The guy on the ladder that is doing like the weird slow motion reach for ketchup in there is his son, Charlie Jr. I worked for them. I worked in their deli. They're wonderful people. Charles Modica passed a couple years ago, which was, very sad. But there's not a single shot of that movie, obviously, with the exception of like the Ed Harris Control Center, where like I hadn't been or hung out or we had done something that was important or memorable. You can the spot where Truman always meets the twins that are always trying to sell him insurance. Just past that is where our theater was, which is where we just like lived and breathed constantly. And most of these folks are, in Los Angeles with us now. They're still our friends and family. And so there's a lot of really good memories that pop up with that movie. Anytime we watch it, like Torlin's just like, I think she knows to like the minute where I'm just going to start going, where I'll just be like watching and just kind of start to go like, okay. And so
that's where it gets sad, is because of the nostalgia and remembering and not.
Oh God. It's such a heavy nostalgia thing. And, which gets sort of meta on the level of like, this was literally a town built specifically to keep Truman happy and content and contained.
Right. And that's what it did for you too.
Yeah, exactly. Aww. Exactly. We always have this joke that the backup plan was going to be just saying screw this and going back there and like buying 4 jet skis and then just living on the beach and like renting them out to people, and like that's.
There you go. There's the dream.
Then that's going to be life for the next 20, 30 years.
Now,
So
so
yeah,
then when you break through the wall as Truman, that's you going, like you walk through the door, that's you going to Los Angeles. Is that right?
yeah, I think so. We moved. We actually all moved up. We all broke through the wall together and moved to San Francisco as
Whoa,
a group.
whoa. That's a big
Which
difference from Kentucky to Florida
oh,
to San
dude, you
Francisco.
have holy shit. You have. We did this the hardest way possible. Um, because also like Torlin and I moved out there together, which was for both of us, it was our first big city experience.
Mhm.
Because like I was born in Louisville, but like in the suburbs, like and also like Louisville doesn't prepare you for a place like San Francisco
Yeah.
or LA or New York, or Chicago or something like that. Um, and I came out a couple months before her, and with everything I owned in like three giant suitcases, and just so if you've never flown into San Francisco before, you basically get on BART, which is their transit system, and you take a train into the city. And I got off at Market, which is right where the trolley turnaround is, which is one of those packed, dense areas in the city, like just
Yep.
tourists everywhere, and it kind of collides with the financial district. And I just like got up on the escalator and had these three giant suitcases and was just like, oh Jesus Christ, like what in the fuck have I done? And was just so scared shitless. Um, but yeah, it definitely, and that was our first time really actually living together, as opposed to like
Mhm.
I live in your college apartment, even though like mine is
Right.
right down the street, but I just always stay at yours. So that was like our first time living together. That was our first big city together. Um, uh, that was her like really kind of first big time away from family, or at least that at that much of a distance. So there's definitely a level of like um you've broken through the wall, and at the end of that movie, he good afternoon, good evening, good night, he takes a bow, he goes through, and you see oh, what's the actress's name, who's also in Braveheart, who plays the late the girl he was in love with. She puts on her coat and she runs down the apartment, but you don't really see
Oh yeah.
uh,
The one that
what.
he likes that
Yeah, he's
she's
like
like, we have to
making the
go now.
collages,
Yeah.
and yeah, yeah. Um, there's that. You don't know what their next step is, and I definitely think the same thing was true for all of us. We didn't know what the fuck we were doing, um, and so yeah, it was super scary, and so and it still is, to a degree. I've been doing this on the West Coast for 10 years now,
Mhm.
and there's always that doing stand up and doing comedy, and there's always that level of this is not gonna. There's always that fear of like this is not going to work.
When will the
Um,
bottom fall out?
exactly,
Always.
exactly. Or when will there be a bottom for me to stand on to then be worried about falling out? I mean, being here is probably the first time in about 10 years where I'm actually like, oh, I have a bottom to stand on.
Yeah. Gotta try
Okay, now I have to work really hard to make sure this does not fall out.
it.
Um,
So
so yeah, so we watched it. We rewatched it pretty recently, actually, and just the first shot of the town, I was just like, "That's where we all get po' boys," and just immediately like lost it.
so would that also be your pick for the third question, which is what is a film that inspires you, or are we gonna go to a different movie?
Um, let's we can go to a different movie. Um, oh wait, okay. Sorry, I thought there was a knock at the door. There was not. I was thinking about this. I was gonna invert. I was gonna subvert your question and be a rebel a little bit. Because the movie that used to inspire me a lot, which I have since like rebelled against really hard, and I was thinking about this the other day, was High Fidelity, starring John Cusack.
Hmm.
Um, I think I fell in love with that movie at too young an age, and I think a lot of guys do. And I think it really it I think I mean this in jest, but I think there's a lot of Arrested Development in men that can be blamed on John Cusack films. Um,
Now I'm going through his catalog. Let's see. Gross Point Break, The Journey of Natty Gann, which I love.
but like Say Anything, just the sort of the petulant man child that gets the girl in the end because he just won't stop trying to get her. Um, uh, so I was obsessed with High Fidelity. Uh, I think I saw it maybe in when did it come out? 2000, something like that.
I feel like it's later than that, but
It might be a
chat
little
will
later than
tell
that.
us. Thank you, chat, for letting us
Thanks,
know
chat.
in a moment.
Um, uh, but I was obsessed with that movie. I loved it. I could quote every word of it. Um, I would always list things in terms of top fives, just like he does in that movie, just like Rob does in that movie. And it's a good movie. Like I'll never be like, oh, this movie sucks. Like it's Jack Black's coming out party. He's incredible in it. Um, Tim Robbins is so funny as Ian Raymond, the weird like mystery new boyfriend that like Rob constantly like projects all of his fears on. And John Cusack's great in it. It's definitely like a stripped down, um, sort of soul bearing performance by him. But
It,
so basically,
it came
say
out
again.
in 2000, just to interject
Okay,
that.
so it did
But
come out in
thank you, chat.
2000. So, uh, okay, yeah. So yeah, this timing works out. I had just broken up with probably like yeah, first like serious girlfriend that had just ended, and then I saw High Fidelity. So yeah, and then everything was a big snowball from there. Um, so High Fidelity is a movie about a guy who won't get his shit together, won't get his shit together, won't get his shit together, doesn't understand why everything is collapsing around him. Relationships, his job, um, his goals,
Yes.
um, and is constantly blaming it on other people. He goes through this whole thing where he's going to reach out to every one of his exes and he's going to figure out like why that went wrong and somehow that's going to like provide him with some answers. Um, uh, and One of the big ones is he reunites with his big like crush from his youth, Charlie. Um, and He's like she's on such a pedestal. Like he's built her up so much in his mind. There's this moment where like he's like, okay, it's time for the big one on the list. I can't avoid her anymore. And then he has that great moment where he's like, she's in the fucking phone book. Like she should be living on Neptune, not in the fucking phone book. Um, and He has this big realization. He goes to a dinner party with her, and he's just like watching her, and he's like, "Oh my god, she's awful. Like, how could I, like, kind of like, oh, fuck her. Like, she's awful. Like, I'm better than this. I'm better than her." Um, by the end of the movie, there's a moral, there's a positive redemption for Rob, where he does get his shit together and he realizes that what he has is very good and he should work on strengthening that as opposed to like looking at all this past stuff and or keeping his options open and stuff like that. So but I think with High Fidelity, I can't speak for all boys. um, I saw that movie way too young.
Mm-hmm.
Appreciate the lessons that I think he's maybe 35, 36 in that movie. um, at at the age of 20, you can't appreciate the lessons that End of Rob learns in that movie. But the one thing that does stick with you is fuck Charlie. And I think that impacted me, that inspired me in very poor ways for a long time, I think.
Mm.
And I, I think it inspires sort of this kind of like I'm not happy, I'm not happy, I'm not happy for the sake of not being happy. And then if you do have actual, anxiety problems or confidence problems or depression, which I do, like then those things will just feed into it. Like the Rob Gordon effect will just feed into things that you already have. Um, so I think that movie sort of like inspired me, like kind of poorly, where I was like, I had all these wonderful things that I just like wasn't uh, for a long time like putting the work into that I
Mhm.
should,
Yeah.
because I was too busy like with this sort of like boyish like, well, I'm gonna make mixtapes and stuff like that instead of really learning the lesson of
I'm gonna work on myself.
yeah, I'm gonna work on myself. I'm gonna work on what I have in front of me,
Mhm.
which I think is harder and a little more noble than being like than going like, oh, a bigger picture, or
Yeah. So high
uh,
fidelity helps you through difficult times?
no, it did for a long time, but I don't think for the right way. Now that I'm older, I think I appreciate that. I appreciate that movie in a much different way.
Mhm.
Now that I've had a similar journey that Rob has in that movie, just in terms of like age and experience and wisdom and stuff like that. The way that I appreciate that movie um, and enjoy that movie is so different than like 23-year-old me that would have been
Yeah.
like, yeah, Rob, fuck Charlie, I agree, these fucking chicks, like, they broke us, like, they ruined us, instead of just being like, oh, maybe I ruined me,
Right.
a little bit, and should take responsibility for my choices and my life and what I do.
Very good.
I don't know if that was a good answer or
Well, it's not about being a good answer.
not.
But I think that pretty much wraps up our session for today. And the
Well,
lights
good
went off
timing because
for
the
you.
lights just
What?
went off
What?
again.
What? So I want to thank you, Joe, for being on this session of film
Oh,
therapy.
absolutely. Thank you for taking some time for me.
Where can the other patients that are in the waiting room find you?
They can find me on Twitter at JOESTARR187. And they can find me on Screen Junkies with honest trailers and on Movie Fight sometimes, and pretty much every day on Screen Junkies News.
And you just chose number 187. You're like, this is cool. 187. I'm going with this.
Okay, so do you remember way back when like you chose an email address for the very first
Of
time? It was
course
like your
I
Yahoo or
do.
your Hotmail or whatever.
Yes.
So I picked J Star or something. I don't even remember what it was now, and I guess it would have been Hotmail. Hotmail was like, that's unavailable. Here's some alternate choices.
Uh-huh.
And the first one on the list was 187, and I was like, oh, I have to pick that. That's
Yeah. And
ridiculous.
now
And
I'm just gonna use it
I just kept it.
forever.
Yeah, my brand has been consistent since I was about 19.
That's good. It's a brand. You're branding. So that helps. Oh man. I'm thinking back to my AOL account, which I think I can still check. With it
Oh
had
no,
like a ton of numbers, like 33553. I got to pick them out, but
I have a feeling that there's a whole bunch of Rob Gordons on that AIM that are just like, Priya never returns my IMs anymore.
I also want to say I really miss you as the internet, because that was one of my favorite performances that you did. And for those that don't know, I'm talking about Joe would play the internet on Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, I have
That's
to
the
figure out another way to fit that in somewhere. Definitely.
it's such a good bit. It's so hilarious.
Thank you very
And
much.
that still has a Twitter account, right?
I
This is
think it does. We never did anything with it.
I feel like you should bring that back, like that
Yeah,
account.
we got to find that login.
um, and the patients can also find me here on Film Therapy. You can find me performing in a Christmas musical at the Redondo Beach Performing Arts Center next weekend, and on Twitter at Miss Movies. So that's where I am. So yay!
Hey, hey. Well,
Hey, hey, hey!
Get at that performance, and thanks again for having me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you all for joining us. We will see you next time on our next film therapy session. Bye, 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 bye.